Welcome to this help movie on managing data records in Rebase. This demo will describe the data view window and how to manually add, edit, delete and lock records, flag data, as well as various other data display options. Later demos will go into more detail on how to import and export records. The example we'll be using is a research institution that runs several skin tests on a set of children over a certain period of time. So they will be collecting data relating to the patients and the results of the skin test each time the children visit. This patient and test occasion data view has been set up to collect and process all the required data. When the view is opened, we can see it has two tabs. One tab to collect the patient details and another to collect the data for each child's test occasion. It's worth pointing out at this stage that a view is essentially a portal into the database, like a magnifying glass focusing in on any aspect of the database we want, therefore allowing you to present your information in a way that best suits your needs. This also means that although you are displaying, adding and updating records in this view, the data itself is actually independent of the view. You could delete the entire view, but the records would still remain in the database. This is because other views may also be accessing and displaying the same records in a way that is best suited to another need. Therefore, although deleting an entire view would not delete the data, the only way to do this is to physically delete the records using the delete record option. Likewise, adding or updating records will be reflected in other views that have access to them. Okay, so let's start by adding a new record. To do this, click the Add Record button. You will notice each question in this tab has a related form field loaded into the data entry form. Each question also has a related flag button, which will be described in more detail later in this demo. The type of field added is dependent on the data type of the question. For example, patient ID has been set as a number field, so can only accept numbers. The patient's ethnic origin question is a lookup providing several options to choose from. Note, if you require another option that is not currently in the list, you can click the Add New Option button. The date of birth question has been set as a date, so you are provided with a date picker. Other data types are also provided, such as auto-increment, which will generate a number for you when left blank, file, which will allow you to upload files, time, email, currency, and many more. When fields are blank, you will notice the light grey text inside the boxes, which provides you with hints on what type of data must be entered. For example, the initials field states that a text value between 1 and 5 characters must be entered. If you enter data that is not inside that range, the text field will be surrounded with a red error mark and you'll be provided with an error message when you hover the mouse over this field. You will also not be able to save the record until all errors have been fixed. As data is now in the field, the light grey text has obviously disappeared. If you want to see this tip again, along with any additional message the administrator wants you to see when entering this data, simply hover over the question label. Note, if the administrator had set any question default values, they would automatically be entered into the fields when clicking the Add button. Questions that appear in bold are ID questions. They were set by the administrator as the questions that will uniquely identify this record. After entering data into the ID questions and you tab or click away from those fields, the system will search to see if the record already exists in the database. And if so, it will retrieve the data relating to that record and populate the required cells. To demonstrate this, we can see that patient 10005 already exists in the database. So if we enter it here and click away from the field, we can see the system searches for the record, finds it and loads all existing data into the form. After adding data into all fields, you can choose to save the record, save and add new, which is useful when adding multiple records one after the other, or cancel the changes without saving. To edit a record, simply select the row and edit the required data. As soon as the system recognises a change has been made, the Save Required mode will appear. It's also possible to focus in on a set of records when adding or editing. For example, imagine we only want to view records relating to patient 10004 when switching between available tabs. To do this, we would add 10004 into the search box, which would then display only that patient's records in the Patient Details tab. Then, when we switch to the Test Occasion tab, the search remains the same, and when the data loads, it will only load test occasions for that patient. This therefore provides us with a very simple way of drilling down and focusing on specific records in the grid across a range of tabs. Records can be locked or unlocked, and certain data values can be flagged. To see these features in action, imagine a scenario where an administrator of a view had employed a data entry clerk to input all her records. After the data had been entered, the administrator wanted to check if it had been entered correctly. If whilst checking the data she realised certain fields were not entered correctly, she could set a flag next to these fields, which would act as an alert to the data entry clerk. For example, if we set a red flag next to the test date field and save the item, the flag appears in the grid. Then the next time the data entry clerk logs in, she can choose to show only flagged records, and can then go through the list making the required amendments. Note, the meaning of each flag can be altered to suit your needs in the settings page. Now, if when checking the data, the administrator sees that the record has no problems, she can choose to lock the record, which will prevent anyone from amending the data. To look at record locking in a little more detail, we can see this Test Occasion tab has two bold ID questions, Patient ID and Test Occasion ID. The administrator has the ability to lock the entire patient or individual test occasions. For example, if we select a test occasion relating to patient 10004 and select the lock feature, we can choose whether to lock the entire patient ID or the individual test occasion. Likewise, the same applies when we unlock. The same concept applies when deleting data. For example, when selecting a row, we are provided with the option to delete data relating to the entire patient or the individual test occasion. You are also provided with an option of deleting all records shown in the tab. Again, you can choose to delete all patient data or just test occasion data. When deleting all data from a tab, you are reminded that the records will also be removed from any other view that references them. Additional options are available when displaying records in the grid, such as collapsing the Record Details panel, displaying lookup values instead of names, and displaying the details of the users that inserted or modified the record details. Thank you for listening, and please do contact us if we can be of any assistance.